My name is Tista Kassergod, and I'm your host for these fireside chats with leaders and innovators, a chat with people who are making a difference in our community and have many significant accomplishments. This is a conversation regarding views of leaders of different occupations in our community. And I am so excited that we are joined by my professor and director for the Peace and Justice Studies program here at Wellesley College, Dr. Catia Cecilia Confortini. Catia is a scholar and activist among many other various leadership titles. To our viewers, she is currently serving as the convener of the WILPF and was the president of the board for WILPF UNO Inc. Previously, she has worked closely with domestic violence survivors, published work on the history of feminist international thought and organizing, collaborated with the Feminist Peace Research Network, and co-authored several articles and peer-reviewed book chapters. So, Catia, thank you so much for joining me today. It's such an honor to have you. I hope you know how much I, along with many others in our community, look up to you. You are personally such a role model to me, and I'm sure that your experiences will inspire whoever listens to our conversation because of your work both domestically and internationally.
Thank you so much. This is so humbling. It's very nice of you to be so excited.
I am so excited. You have done so much work, and specifically, I have been working for women's empowerment since a young age, and that's an issue very close to me. And so it really means a lot that there's people like you in the world who do this work.
I know
Need it.
you and your feminist club in high school.
Yeah, we really
That's fantastic.
more gender equality. So I would love to begin by discussing some of your background and how you decided to pursue peacemaking, peace studies in general. So you graduated in political science from the University of Florence and then got your master's at the University of Notre Dame in international peace studies. So what made you decide to transition your focus to specifically peace studies?
I didn't know that such a thing existed when I was in college. So I'm a first generation college student. There is no such thing as liberal arts education in Italy. But I chose my major based on a book that listed all the majors available in universities in Italy and what career paths they led to. I was convinced that I wanted to go into diplomacy because I wanted to travel and I wanted to learn more languages and meet people from all over the world. I wanted to leave home. I wanted to experience a bigger city than where I grew up. And so that's why I went political science in Florence. While I was in college and studying political science, I also developed my political consciousness. We had study group meetings. We had people involved in various causes. At one point, in response to a reform of the university, we occupied the university to demand better study conditions and better conditions for students. There was a lot of political activity, but especially activity for social justice and broader in the international realm. And then when I went to study abroad, but I went to study in Ireland. I developed a passion for Ireland. I looked at the Irish struggle for independence and I wrote a thesis on Ireland. I was fanatic of U2. I had a class that was about human rights and I wrote a paper on U.S. foreign policy on human rights during the Carter and Reagan administrations. In the process of researching for that paper, I read this book that was called The Human Interest and the National Interest. And the author and professor called Robert Johanson. He's one of my dearest mentors to this day. I came to the U.S. as a language fellow at Vassar College, went back home, started working in corporate Italy. My then boyfriend decided to go to grad school to Notre Dame. I had vacation from my corporate job. So I went to Notre Dame. As I was walking around campus, I saw Robert Johanson's name and I saw that he was teaching in this place called the Kroc Institute for International Peace Studies. I talked to the administrative assistant at the time. I immediately applied. I said, that's what I want to study. I'm passionate about human rights. I'm passionate about doing politics a different ways. And I was starting thinking about feminist politics even at that time. But I applied thinking, I want to study peace, but I want to study peace, especially focusing on women's rights. I'm sure that I was the first Italian to ever apply to the program. And I think I'm still the only Italian ever admitted to the program at
Wow.
Notre Dame. So I went, and that's where my feminism developed, ironically, in a Catholic university. And that's how I ended up becoming a feminist peace researcher. I didn't know that it existed, but I found it.
Wow, it seems like such a perfect series of events that just led to this, because I read that your research today, it still centers on the intersection between politics and feminist thought. And it just seems like all of these events have led to you developing that moment in your career where you were like, I'm going to pursue international peace studies. When I think of U2's song A Beautiful Day, I always think of like a paradise or like a utopia, that like we learned about the desired reality in our peace studies class last semester, and it kind of seems like that's what peacemakers hope to achieve. So I love that you brought them up, and also I want to acknowledge how amazing it is that you were first generation. You must be making your family so proud, and like to be a trailblazer not only for your family but also for Italians all over the world who want to pursue peace studies. You're representing your country too, and I think that's really amazing.
But that's very that's wonderful. I have always had I'm very, very close to my family. That consciousness of how I was, my agency, my sense of self, and in a sense that desire to rebel against these stereotypes and assumptions really led me to take the step toward becoming a feminist very short.
Well, I think it's nice that it's always been in you. It seems like you didn't really have to transition much at any point, because you've always had that fire in you.
Yeah, you have to resist.
And so I was actually going to ask you, because of all your work with women's rights and feminist work and all of that, you've received many honors and awards and recognitions. So I was wondering if there's a particular one that stands out to you or you feel like especially proud of receiving.
I wouldn't say any award for me is meaningful. What is meaningful is meeting a student 10 years later and say, I remember that time in class when you said this, and that has led me to this other work.
Mm-hmm.
So having an impact on my student, or not only my student in class, but also other people that I worked with, they remember a moment in time when something I said or something that happened between us transformed their lives. Mm-hmm. And made them believe in the possibilities of doing the work that they will then, or that propelled them into a career that they never thought they could get into, or this kind of things make me more proud than any award, right? Because an award stays with you. What happens to an award? What happens to an award when you die?
Yeah.
I mean, it's paper at most, or if you have money you spend, or it's nothing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you affect one person, that one person goes on to affect other people. They go on to affect other people. That's how change happens. We're just ripples. We're just drops in the ocean. And if you touch another drop, and then the drop becomes bigger, that's the drop becomes the ocean. So, I mean, it's a trite metaphor in a sense, but really, in a word, it's zero. I mean,
absolutely. Not only are you like building an impact in the world, but your legacy is like a lasting impact as well.
Like the many teachers that have inspired me, and by teachers, I don't only mean my professors, right? Yeah. The people in my life that have taught me. My father and mother to begin with, my aunt who raised us as her children, my actual teachers, the people that I worked with, the women that I worked with at the domestic violence shelter, the women that trained me to be a domestic violence counselor, all the women in WILF, you mentioned WILPF, it's WILF in short. The women in WILF, both the ones that are in leadership roles, but also the regular members like me, that have inspired me to continue working for the organization. I hope to be honoring and carrying on their legacy. And I hope that that will continue in my students and in the people that I touch in my life.
I'm honored to be a student of yours and to learn that from you, because when you put your head on the pillow, my mom always says when she puts her head on the pillow and she thinks about her day, she thinks about, did I do good by the world? Like, did I do good today? Or did I have an impact? And so it's nice that,
Yeah.
this is a legacy. And I think of you as like a professor of practice, because what you teach inside the classroom as a professor, you also apply in your own work outside of the classroom. And
I
so
hope so.
I believe so, because even with the mediation course that you told us about, we are learning about mediation skills in our current class, conflict transformation. So I think that it's amazing that you continue to learn, and as well as show what your knowledge is to the students, so that students can learn from you as well. In regards to that mediation course, are there any important takeaways that you have?
Oh gosh, yes, so many. First of all, I want to really acknowledge my teachers there. First, I learned that to be a mediator, you don't have to be neutral. You don't have to alienate yourself from your sense of justice. In order to do that, you have to care about the people that you're mediating for, even if those people are not doing the work of justice. Taking them in as full people, as in people that are more than the sum, than the one bad action or than the sum of their beliefs. They're just full people.
I think it's nice that you had such a welcoming environment from your professors, because that's what you create for us when you like spotlight active listening and all of that in class. And
yeah, you all are doing so well in the class. I'm
thank
so
you.
amazed at the level of self-reflection and vulnerability that you come to class with. It's really admirable. Not all classes, it's difficult to be vulnerable in front of your peers.
And it is a great group of students. I'm lucky that we have such a nice environment in our classroom, with all of the students. Why do you feel that it's important to practice this active listening and to be open as a professor?
Oh, for the same reason that you cannot be a conflict resolution practitioner without active listening. If you go in and you think that you have all the answers and you know everything, nobody's going to listen to you. I am a teacher because I figured out in my studies that I really love to be at universities. I love to visit campuses even. And I think I get that from my father, because although he has a fifth grade education, he really was in love and is in love with learning. That love I really learned from my parents, and I still have. What an opportunity I have to listen and to learn and to discover who they are and be excited with them about what they learn and what they find out, and about their lives and about their idols, from Ben Bunny to Taylor Swift, all those, all of that. It's so exciting. And it's also humbling and interesting and wonderful to hear also about their struggles.
Yeah.
And how to face difficulties in their lives,
Yeah.
their resilience. I think people are interesting. Just people are interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody has a story.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like that's why I do these interviews. It's so nice
Right?
to hear about different walks of life and the different experiences. And it's so cool that you teach specifically at a place where there's like a conglomeration of so many different cultures and backgrounds. That's amazing. And I also think it's amazing that although you're so accomplished, you still are open to learning from others, and still are open to learning from even your students and hearing their experiences out. So I actually have had the honor of hearing, speaking of different perspectives, I've had the honor of hearing about different perspectives on how one can define feminism, because when one has different unique experiences, you define it differently, even though there are some similarities. Everyone has their own experiences, but as you specifically highlighted feminist international relations and women's human rights, I'm excited to ask you this question that I have loved to ask in every single one of my fireside chats so far, because feminism is a topic very close to me. So
Yep.
I'm excited to ask you, what does feminism mean to you?
I go back to Bell Hook's definition of feminism. Feminism is a movement to end sexist oppression.
Mhm.
That's what feminism at its heart is. It's a struggle for social justice. It's a struggle for creating better lives for everybody, men, women, genderqueer, trans, non-binary folks, that all of whom suffer from sexist oppression. It's a movement that creates better, that has as its aim to create better lives for everybody.
I've never heard it being described specifically as a movement against oppression, but it makes complete sense. It does. And who more apt to answer the question than you? So I'm glad to hear your answer. And it's super interesting because oppression is not the first word that I have thought of. I've always thought of like balancing the scales, but oppression is what separates us. It is what creates that divide between all genders. And when a lot of people hear feminism, I feel like they think of it specifically for females and specifically for women presenting people, but it's as you said about all genders, trans people and queer people, and making sure that everyone has their place and everyone has the seat at the table to speak and share their voices. So that's really lovely.
But even men,
Yeah, even men.
cis men, the
Yeah.
world should value all the differences in all the beautiful varieties of humanities that we have.
I also read something you said is that it's important to value feminist activists as seriously as feminist theorists. Why do you find it important?
For the same reason that I tell you that I learned from my students, right? I learned from activists too. For me, taking people seriously is also taking them seriously as thinking people that act in the world.
Yeah.
And so as thinking people, I don't want to only think, I don't want to only presume that they act. I want to know what their thinking is, what their theory is that they base their work on. One of the feminist writers that I admire a lot, an old one that is very, very misunderstood among feminists even, is a woman that passed away a few years ago. Her name is Sarah Radick. And Sarah Radick was a philosopher. Her big seminal book that then gave rise to care theory, to a whole current of feminist thought, was called Maternal Thinking Toward the Politics of Peace. I think that for me, the big insight that she had was mothering as an act is actually a thinking act. It's not only one act, it's a practice. And all the things that mothers, not just women, but people who do the work of mothering can help us think about different ways in which we do politics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's her work then gave rise to a lot of has given rise to a branch of feminism, if you want, called care theory.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been applied to international relations. Fiona Robinson has worked on that. Joan Tronto has talked about politics and ethics, and also in care theory. So taking seriously the work of mothers can help us configure different relationships between people based on care rather than on domination. The work of mothers is publicly praised, but privately scorned, right? It's like, oh yeah, it's the mothers do this, and as if it's kind of rote work. It's not important.
No.
It doesn't require any thinking. It comes naturally to women. That is BS, right? As if it requires no skills, no thinking, no, and that for me, you can extend that from the work of mothers to the work of anybody,
Yeah.
right? Anybody that does any work has some thinking behind the work that they do, regardless of the kind of work.
That is so interesting. I've never thought about a feminism from the point of view of motherhood, but even if it is learned, it's fundamental. Like in our whole society, I mean, that's how everything has been built. I mean, that's how we are who we are. You know, we all have mothers or moms somewhere, and it's interesting just from a point of view of like, if you have thoughts are important, but what good is thought if you can't put it into action, at least at some point, or if someone can put your thoughts into action. And I do want to be
Well,
meaningful.
tell your mother.
Yeah. My mom is going to watch this and she's going to love it. And be like, yes, I deeply have an appreciation for mothers and not just mothers, but those who choose to be moms, because I think there's a difference in that word. And I want to be meaningful of your time. So I would like to end with like a personal question, if that's okay. I wanted to ask what you like to do for leisure.
Right now, knitting is my number one pleasure thing.
Oh, wow.
I'm an avid knitter. So I know that my mother taught me because I know that my mother was an avid knitter. I'm very fast too, but I don't remember actually learning it. I also went to Catholic school, so the nuns taught me some of it. I also learned crochet. When I came to this country, I brought all my needles with me, but I didn't know how to read instructions in English. And because I came here before the internet, then the internet happened. And I said, yes, now I can do it again. And so now I knit regularly. And that's what I like to do for pleasure. I'm also kind of a binge watcher of, especially, and this is a point of a little bit of shame, especially gruesome murder mysteries type of thing. I watched all the True Detective season.
The Peacemaker loves violence in her free time.
Like it's morbid. And then I also love lakes. I love the sea. But my hometown in Italy is close, not too far from a lake, and I really love lakes. I love lakes around that have mountains around. So I do a lot of walking around, hiking, but not heavy hikes. I'm not like into heavy hikes, but forest walking. And COVID, I started baking, but I'm not a great baker, but I like cooking. I'm a decent cook. For the US, I'm a great cook. Italians, not so much.
Amazing. Thank you. I think there's a lot we can learn from, even things that we do in our time to distress and just have fun. And even like your love of lakes and nature and like the ocean, there's a lot we can learn about from nature, like in regards to just the peace that these natural environments have. On that note, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you so much to our viewers for watching this conversation as well. I've so enjoyed speaking with you, Catia.
Thank you. I enjoyed speaking with you.
I'm grateful that you took the time to speak with me.
My pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching, please don't forget to like our video and subscribe to this channel to hear more enlightening conversations like ours in the future. And thank you, Catia.
Thank you so much, Tista.